This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Is today the day that your life's going to change forever? Are you prepared for things never to be the same? Will others around you recognize and accept the metamorphosis? We can spend our lives preparing, but the truth is, reactions can never be anticipated. We never know until we step out of the simulator and have our eyes opened by reality. We think we know what may not happen because what happens is what we didn't know. Experience is the only true instruction. Going through circumstances time and time again is what makes you an expert. The only way to know your capabilities and limitations is to put them into action. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. Gentlemen, this is the night. I want to thank you so much for coming in here, because on this episode, this being July 10th, the date of this recording, I really wanted to sit down and give everybody some details on an event that has changed my life, and I needed you two in here. Normally, in this date, Mike and I would sit and we'd have a conversation. Obviously, that can't happen this year. So this is a strange anniversary. This is obviously July 10th, 2013 was the anniversary of my shooting. Mike and I always leaned on each other on these dates. His was September 16th. Mine was July 10th, and we always made sure that we were there for one another. That's not happening this year, but I really do appreciate you guys coming in tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a lot to talk about here. We're going to give some details that have never been aired before, and we're going to really be able to get into the shooting itself. But before we do, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police or podcasters, but we do trust Toyota Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So this week's social media question comes from one of our dear friends, and that's dear Chris. She's going to be very happy that hers made the cut this week. The other ones that were sent in this week on social media will eventually make the cut, because we got some good ones. So dear Chris writes, has your trauma caused you to become something of an empath? And the second part of that is, can you identify trauma even when it's become hidden? Mike?
Flynn?
You're going to punt on this one, huh?
What do you think, Mike? You think because of what you went through, you can identify, you have that feeling when somebody, oh yeah, they've been through some shit.
I would say so. I mean, based upon things I've experienced, you could just tell. You could feel it, on somebody else that's, suffering or, going through some things.
Well, they used to talk about with the Vietnam vets, go back to your military training. Well, the Vietnam vets used to have what they would refer to each other as like the thousand yard stare. So they were able to identify when somebody's really been in the shit or somebody just talks about being in the shit. Because you've run across those people too. Oh, I was this and this and this, and you're like, yeah, you're full of shit. So can you identify, is there a particular part of the population that I can identify that in?
I mean, you could, there's distance. You can be around somebody, you can be around a veteran, and they'll just separate, while you're sitting having a conversation or at dinner or whatever it is, and you can just see them slowly just separate, and, they'll start thinking about things that, it's some of the things I used to do, kind of still do, but, I've used all the tools to try and, fix those things, but, yeah, I mean, there's many different signs, and obviously, any one of us, and even in our occupations, and not even on occupations, you could tell something that, somebody goes through, they can identify.
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I see it, I think, with the law enforcement side, and for me, it strikes a chord whenever there's sort of an intersection between law enforcement and family trauma, right? So we see like family trauma. If I see somebody, like you said, the 1,000-yard stare, you can identify it immediately, the walking wounded. And when I see people going into that point, I see the timeline for myself. I was like, I was there. And everything you think your problem is the worst problem that's ever been had, and you feel alone.
So are you looking at identifiers when you find that stuff, or is it a feeling? Because I think that's what Dear Chris is asking. Is it an empath is somebody who can feel other people's pain? You know, is that do you feel their pain, or are you going on certain identifiers, how they're acting, what they're saying, things like that?
It conjures up my own feelings, and I just, their pain is apparent, whether it's through the tone in their voice. You can see a slight tremble. You know, you can see people
twitch of the face.
Yeah, or even the blankness. You know,
I was just this weekend, and it was something that both of us, you know, I went through, and you know, we had a little discussion. It was instant. I could tell. I'm like, wow.
I saw the blank look on your face when I mentioned the word empath.
Well, I'm going down these things. This is some big words here. 'Cause I took a break after the LSAT test. I kind of like shut my brain off.
Oh, yes, the LSAT test. That's going to make you empathetic to other lawyers.
if the vocabulary
Oh,
just,
boy.
whoop,
Yeah,
I'm done.
They're in for it.
It's really crazy when, you know, after my shooting, I think before my shooting too, I was always drawn to people who I could feel have been through something, who have been through some pain or have some pain that they're hiding below. To answer Chris's second part first, it's when I can't explain it. There's nothing to explain, but I'll talk to you for a moment and I'll just say, oh yeah, there's some shit behind there. I've seen it with guests in here. So guests will come in here and you know, we've talked about this where like, yeah, there's more to this story because you can feel that there's more to this story. And it's more about the things that they're not saying. You know, so what you don't say is just as important as what you do say. It speaks volumes about what's going on in your current life. So to answer Chris's questions, absolutely. Post-shooting, it has drawn me closer. I connect on a different level with people with trauma.
Yeah.
If your life was all, and let's face it, nobody's life is all rosy. But if your life was all rosy, I don't know if I have that much in common with you. I have to feel some pain. I have to feel some pain and know that you're human, because that's what the human experience is all about. It's about pain.
Yeah, those valleys. When you see somebody who's been through not a bump in the road, but a deep, deep valley, and it's funny, even sitting around the table, like looking at each other's eyes. You know, we can.
I try not to look at your eyes because that's very non-masculine.
It is, yeah. But you can see it. Like the eyes are the gateway to the soul, right? And even if you're laughing at one time, you can. There's something about the eyes when you look at somebody like this guy's been through some shit.
If I catch you staring at my eyes, Frank,
yeah,
we're gonna have a huge problem.
Well, you're talking about my paleness. You probably think I have pink eyes like an albino.
No, actually, what I said, I think your skin tone is LED.
Yeah, something like that. Translucent.
So, dear Chris, thank you for sending in that question. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, why don't you go over to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. Go see Gus. Tell him the Suffering Podcast sent you, and you're going to have a great meal at Cubita Cafe. Some of the best food you ever can eat. He cooks everything really healthy, and I don't know whether that's by design or whether he just does that when I'm in there, but everything, it just never hurts my stomach. It's great food. It's good atmosphere. Gus is not in the food business. He's in the people business, and I guarantee if you go in there more than once, he's going to know your name because that's who he is. So go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. Go see Gus at Cubita Cafe. So guys, I couldn't do something like this without two people who were close to me. It's a very personal subject. And, you know, I lead up to this date every single year, and usually a week or two out, I just start having these awful, awful, awful nightmares. The nightmare, the one that is most memorable this year, rocked me hard. And it wasn't even about the shooting. It's kind of bringing up those hidden feelings that you've sort of tried to get past. And I'll tell everybody about it because it's god awful. I don't even like to speak it into existence, but I think I got to get it out. I had a dream that my son took his life. That's how bad the dreams are. And it was one of those dreams where I sat up in bed. I sat on the end of the bed. I couldn't breathe. I had to catch my breath. I run into my son's room to see if he's still there. And it's like, and then when you realize it's just a dream, you're like, damn, like that was a bad one.
Yeah.
Do you guys still have the nightmares?
I do.
Yeah.
You know, I immediately shut it off. I've taught myself, and you know, obviously.
Well, when you wake up, one of those dreams wakes you and startles you awake, how long does it take you to realize that it's just a dream?
I mean, over time, over years, it got less and less. You know, it could take a while. You know, I try not to let it stay inside of me as much as, you know what I mean? It's, you know, you just try to think about positive things. You know, it could really, some of them could really, really, you know, take you down.
You know, and this is nothing new because I used to play cards with an older guy. He was 90, I think he was 93 when he passed. And his brother was jumped in on D-Day. And when he got home, anytime he lived in Jersey City, and anytime construction was going off in the background, they said they used to find him under his bed. You know, he would wake up from bed, or if there was a loud noise, or, you know, somebody lit a firecracker, he would jump out of bed, crawl under the bed, and they couldn't get him out, you know, immediately afterwards. Yeah. So that's, I mean, you're talking the 40s. So this is nothing new. This has been going on forever. And listen, I lament to think about what the guys in past wars before recorded this stuff was being identified. You know, we've had 400 and some odd years of peace in written history, and you know that means there's been a lot of wars, a lot of death, a lot of killing, a lot of trauma, and we're only now starting to find the tip of the iceberg. So it's that dream. God, if I never have anything like that again, I'd be real happy, because that dream shook me. I couldn't get back to sleep afterwards because I'm thinking about how just messed up that was. But it was more than a dream. It was the real feeling of the emptiness. Like, I remember saying to myself, "Hey, buddy, we had so much more stuff we weren't supposed to do." Obviously, it's a little bit of trauma transference on from what happened with Mike.
I was just going to say that.
You know, because that's how I feel with Mike. We have so much more stuff. I try to, with my kids anyway, I try to tell them, hey, listen, the best is yet to come. Even though you think good things are happening now and it's hard, sometimes it's difficult, the best really is yet to come. And I wish Mike would have seen that too, because, I mean, just look at this week. Podcast hit 3.5 million views. Yeah. 750,000 downloads. We just had the Star Ledger's about to put out an article for us. The NJ.com just put out the photo shoot. All these great things that are happening.
He would have been elated.
Yeah.
Elated over it.
He would have been crazy.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about, obviously, July 10th, 2013, and I do need two other cops in here to really get into some of the stuff. So what I'm going to ask you guys, this is kind of different. I'm going to kind of turn you guys into the host, because I've told the story so many times, but there might be holes in the story that you want to know, that you need to ask me while we're going through this stuff. So the gentleman, I'll give you a little backstory. The gentleman who did the shooting, his name was Anthony Vocaturo. Anthony Vocaturo is a resident of Florida. He's not the dentist that's in New Jersey, because there's another guy in New Jersey named Anthony Vocaturo. They're related. He was dating this girl in Roseland, New Jersey. They broke up for whatever reason. He sent her a picture 3 days prior. So on July 7th, sent her a picture with a Glock 9mm model, I think it's a 19, to his head. And it was put out over Trax. So Trax is kind of like an interdepartmental information system and I remember the picture very closely. He's got the gun to his head, and she put out a temporary restraining order on him. It was granted, it was never served. So that's the backstory with Anthony Vocaturo. We were working that night. We were working a pitman schedule, so we were on 12-hour schedules, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And it was one of those real slow nights. It's the dreaded Q word in police work. You know, everything happens on slow nights. It's just pop. You know, I had this little routine. First of all, our dispatchers, it was during the time when people were getting laid off, or the people that got laid off in our department were our dispatchers. So officers had to sit at the desk, and we broke it up into 4-hour blocks. My block started at 11 o'clock. So, so 11 o'clock, I was taking the mid shift, and I get my coffee. Drove around a little bit. You try not to get involved in too much stuff. There were some dickheads out there that used to try to get involved right before their desk time because they didn't want to sit on the desk. That wasn't me. I didn't want to put that on anybody else. Go get my coffee, large coffee, 4 sweet and low cream. Most unhealthy thing you could ever have. And I'm pulling up next to my partner. It's just him and I on the road. There was a lieutenant who was the boss. He was in headquarters doing, stupid shit that lieutenants do.
Hey, easy. Not all of them.
I used to bust Mike's balls about that too.
We need a supervisor, right?
Yeah, right. But they're in. So him and I, we got the road. We pull up next to each other, and we're like, I remember saying to him, God, I wish something would happen. Just an alarm call. Something get me out of the car. That's all I wanted.
Wow.
Just something
Those
to get
words can
come back. Be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
The dreaded last words. And, we're car to car, what they call a police car 69. We talk for a little bit about nothing. We're right at the corner of Eagle Rock and Eisenhower. We're sitting in the Exxon gas station, for those of you who know the area. I take he takes a loop. He goes down Eisenhower Parkway, he takes a loop, and I'm going to do what we call our plaza check. So every night we had it was the west and the east zones.
just not to cut you off, but just what you're doing right now is how I know it's affected you, and the details that you're saying. It's just I got it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you. I can even tell you, which the stores aren't there anymore.
So that many years later, look.
Well, 11 years later, I can still tell you all the stores in the first plaza that I hit. So the first plaza was, I think they would call it, there was the Eagle Rock Commons Plaza, and then there was the West Plaza. There were 2 plazas in the West, and then the East Zone car would do the Center Plaza. That's what they would call it. So I said, all right, I'm going to go do my plaza checks, and then I'm going to go in to relieve the desk. I go over there, and I pull, so I'm on Eagle Rock Avenue. I make a left turn in there, and as soon as I make the left turn in there, crack of the radio.
Yeah.
Head to number 43, I won't say the road. Head to number 43, unknown emergency, open 911 call. So we knew the address. We knew what was going on there. We knew the ongoing domestic issues. So it's like, you're quick turning around, put your lights on. It's 10:45 at night. It's not a whole lot of people on the road. And you're starved for information. My partner, who was going down Eisenhower Parkway and just making a loop, he was right behind me. So we go down Eagle Rock Avenue, make a left turn on Passaic Avenue, and we're heading up towards the address, doing about 70 miles an hour with lights, no sirens. We're calling into the desk, like, what do you got? Anything more? It's just, and yeah. I remember the officer on the desk said, I can hear arguing in the background. So what the woman did, she's very smart, what she did. She called 911 and dropped the phone.
Sure.
I go up the road, pull in. Now, this is the asshole move that I do. I pull right in front.
Boy.
Turn my lights up. Pull right in front. Because it's Roseland.
Right. What could happen?
There's nothing going on. It's easy. This is probably just a domestic. It's nothing. You go through 10 of them a night. Mm-hmm. Well, I pull up right in front of the car. My cell phone is in. I used to keep a pouch right on my duty bag. My phone's in there. I never take my phone with me. I figure if I need anything, I'll call over the radio. So we get out, and you walk up. There was 3 of us that responded. The lieutenant got his ass out of headquarters. And we're listening on the door, and we can hear arguing. We can hear a woman crying. We can hear a man yelling. Can't make out what they're saying. And it's townhouses, right? So it's an end unit, and there's a little porch, probably enough for like 2 chairs. Just a normal townhouse complex. So you do the cop flashlight on the door, right? Click, 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 and all we hear is "Don't come in here." Guys yelling, "Don't come in here." Don't come in here, don't come in here. I'm like, fuck. Now what do we do? So there's 3 egresses to the house. There's your back through the sliding glass door, there's the garage, and there's the front door. Well, 2 officers, one of me included, we stay up at the front. My partner goes around the back. I run to my car real quick, and I get a Halligan bar. I'll never forget what a fucking Halligan bar is.
Now, just to quick ask you something. You're not thinking firearm at all at this point, right? You're thinking maybe a verbal, maybe a physical.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking physical. That's so the worst case scenario is physical.
Yeah.
Never thinking that in hindsight, I should have been more hyper aware of that because the guy did send a picture of a gun to his head.
Yeah, but
I wasn't. I'm going to tell you right now, I was very complacent during the whole thing. I was very calm. I was like, all right, well, we have to go in there. We can hear them arguing. So while my partner's in the back, you just key up the radio to know it's time. And he's covering the back. The guy doesn't see him. Now, he sees Anthony Vocaturo point the gun towards the door because he kind of knows, like, we're coming in. So I take the Halligan bar and I start hammering with there's a flat end on the end of it.
Yeah.
And I start hammering by the lock because all I'm trying to do is make a wedge so I can get the crowbar in there and pop the door. It's a steel door. And I've had this question too. It's like, why didn't you kick down the door?
Yeah. Ask any cop that's tried that, right? They got a shattered ankle and no entry.
It's actually kind of humorous to watch when you see somebody.
I bounced off a couple myself.
Just kick the door in. Or, I'll shoulder it in. No problem.
Yeah.
It's a steel door. You're not doing it. So I start hammering. I get about 3 whacks in and then pop, 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 pop. 4 shots. What had happened is when the guy had the gun at the door, so the first one through the door was going to get it. And then when he realized that everything's over, he points the gun towards this woman, and he's going to kill her. And that's when, as soon as he pointed the gun, my partner exchanged gunfire with him.
Now, I got to tell you just right off the bat, hearing a firearm outside of the range,
it's a little different.
It's a little different.
Very loud.
Yeah.
And it's just...
It's very distinct.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why, there's some assholes on 4th of July that'll shoot a gun in the air. You've heard it.
Sure.
And you know it. You're like, oh, yeah, that wasn't fireworks.
No, with fireworks, yeah.
Somebody's shooting guns in the air. So he shoots, he ends up hitting him in the small, right in the left side of the small in the back. He hits him once. And I guess, I don't know what happens from there. All I'm worried about is, oh my God, I call out over the radio, shots fired, and I'm worried about my partner. I go running around because other units are starting to come up now. Like there was 2 or 3. So he said, just cover the front door. That's all you tell him. Just cover the front door. Make sure he doesn't come running out. And I go around the back, and and as I'm going around the back, a kid comes out. And I don't talk about this very much. It was the girl's son. And he's running. He's got his hands up. He's obviously in distress, but he's got his hands up. Like we didn't even know he was in there. And he's like, he's going to kill my mom. He's going to kill my mom. So listen, being the detective that I am, I figured this is the victim's son. So my partner, after he exchanged gunfire, he gets off there's a little back privacy deck, and we sort of. Come together. There was another sergeant who was working a road job who came from the road job, and he's there with us. He's the only guy without a vest. And we come up with this makeshift plan. We're like, well, we're going to gain entry in here. We can't. We can see in the back sliding door. I can see the victim. She's sitting there with her knees to her chest. She's in obvious distress. But I can't see Vocaturo. I can't see him. And listen, I've been told not to say his name so many times. There's a reason I say his name, and I'll get to that at the end.
Yeah.
There's a reason I say his name. I'm not worried about a cease and desist, by the way. So the 3 of us, the sergeant, my partner, and myself, we decide we're going to go up on the deck. We're going to make entry through this rear sliding glass door. We're going to throw something through it, whatever's there, and we're going to go in and we're going to get this woman, right? Because we can't see this guy. The lieutenant hangs back and he's on the grass. Deck's about, I don't know, say about 9 by 9 with the slat walls. And when I go up first, and I go to the right. So the stairs are on the left. I'm looking at the sliding glass door. I go over to the right. Because here's in my mind, I can see everything from the right. I can see the victim. I can't see Vocaturo. I don't know where he is. I guess I was under the assumption that he ran upstairs. It's a big open plan inside these things. But I can see everything. So the other 2 guys, the sergeant and my partner, they get off to the right, and they're sort of by the door jamb. So my partner takes one of the heavy metal patio chairs. And
he's still pushing on after being shot?
Yeah. He's just shot. He shot in the small of the back. He was, I'm sure it didn't feel good. What I didn't know is if he was right behind the sliding glass door off, if I'm looking at it, right off to the left, just out of sight. Like there was no way. But the funny thing was, is if I think back now and I'm looking at the victim, we're not quiet going back there.
Yeah.
She's looking off to her right. Like she's looking on diagonal. She's not looking at the sliding glass door. She's telling us where he is.
It's a perfect ambush position, right?
It was, because the minute we went through, that was it. My partner throws the chair through the door. Glass goes everywhere. And this is 11 o'clock at night. It's dead quiet around. And that's when I see this flash. And I feel that gunpowder hit my face. When you're at the range and you get the little blowback?
Yeah.
I feel the heat. I feel my ear wiggle. Now, I'm stuck behind metal patio furniture, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but it really was a bad idea. And I hit the ground. And I hit the ground. I'm like, did he just fucking shoot at me?
Yeah.
It was just such a surreal moment. But I was so focused and laser focused on, I was just lucid. Everything was quiet. There was no ringing in the ears.
I have to say, like a traumatic incident, it's funny how you're hearing out of one of your senses. Obviously, the olfactory senses, they bring back the memories, right? So you got the flash.
Oh, you could smell the gunpowder, too. Yeah, you could smell it. I can still smell it.
And even the gunshots, I'd imagine, like even hearing it, like it's a strange phenomenon how your ears just make those loud sounds quiet, almost like a ringing.
My son recently asked me something, and I was like, yeah, he shot. It was right between my eyes, but I dodged a bullet. I ducked. I was like Superman, just bobbing and weaving.
In the Matrix.
But I hit the ground, and you know how you take your keys and you put them on your antenna?
Sure, old school thing.
Yeah, so you put them on my antenna, my keys fall off, and I just was like, my keys fell off. Like just like that. I was like, my keys fell off. Pick my keys up, put them back. Now I'm starting to see a lot of blood. And the other two guys, because of where they were in the proximity to the stairs, they were able to get off. Now, here's the fucked up thing, and this is fucking sticks at me. The lieutenant ran. He ran because he had to go, because he was on the A team. He had to go call the chief.
I was going to, as you're telling the story, like my mind goes tactically, and I was going to say something, in reference to that. Did you feel confident with the people that you were with, the other police officers? You know what I mean? Like, that's a big...
The other two on the deck, 100%. The boss, no.
That's a big factor.
No, not at all.
There's always room for mistakes, but I don't think there's any excuse for cowardice.
So I've heard from other guys in the department afterwards that everybody in that department knew what he did.
Yeah. And
I remember trying to call him after everything was done, like after we get off, and big surprise, I wasn't shot. I tried to call him over the radio, and he wasn't picking up the radio. And I find out later the reason he wasn't picking up the radio during an active shooting is because he was on the phone with the chief, telling the chief what's going on.
Yeah.
Like what? So out of everything, I have forgiveness in my heart for a lot of things in this whole issue. That's the one thing because you left me for dead, man. Thankfully, the other two that I was 100% confident on stuck around, because they kept asking. They kept asking me. I kept hearing them yell, "Are you shot? Are you shot?" And I didn't know. I really didn't know. I said, "I see a lot of blood. My shoulder hurts." That's all I knew. But I also knew I was trapped. I couldn't get out. The stairs were 6 feet away. And listen, I know I look like a swimmer, but I'm not very good at swimming on the deck. And I couldn't. I was trapped. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna die. Like, this is it. I'm gonna die. I get myself in a prone position. I get my gun out, and
so you still didn't have eyes on him.
I still didn't have eyes on him.
Oof.
He was still sitting behind the thing. One of the officers, his name's Jason, grabs the back of my belt and assists me while the other guy holds cover. So if that guy poked his head out, he was dead. And they got me off the deck. But I was trapped there for I don't know, maybe a minute and a half. And during that minute and a half, I just my life flashed before my eyes. That's no joke. Like, when people say that, that's the truth. I had a 3-year-old at home, and I had a 7 or 8 month old at home. And my wife's there to take care of him. She's, her husband's a cop. He's working midnights. And all I keep thinking about is like, God, I hope she doesn't hear about this before I tell her. And that's like the thought process. So I'm under fire, but I'm still thinking so clearly.
Amazing how the brain works.
Yeah.
I mean, right from a cop's point of view, listen, I don't know if it's the right term, but you're in a state of psychogenic shock, right? When you have all those focused things that go in there.
But it's like a focus. It's
and
bizarre.
you go to the people that mean the most, and all the things that mean the most.
And I saw my oldest son's face, and I was like, he'll remember me. My youngest will never they'll just be memories. I'll be pictures. My wife's going to leave them all alone, but then I make my peace with the Lord, and I'm ready to go. So I get in this prone position, and I'm ready to shoot it out, and nothing ever happens, but I get picked up. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherrie Allsup is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherrie on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherrie has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherrie's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherrie will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherrie's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherrie also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherrie Allsup, go to sherrieallsup.com. That's SherrieAllsup.com. I get off the deck, and I remember falling to my knees and doing one of these, checking, my shot in the shoulder and my shot in the vest. I don't feel nothing. And then I look, all the blood, there's tons of blood on my arm. So what I did was when after he shot, I hit the deck, and I fell straight on the glass, all the broken glass from the sliding glass door. And that's all it was. And all glass is embedded in my arm and stuff. It's July, it's hot. It was not comfortable after a while. But what we had to do, and now I fully expect after this guy's he shot at police twice. There's no reason why he's not going to do it again. He's going to commit suicide by cop.
Yeah.
All right. But here's the beauty of it. So as we get off the deck, we watch the victim just sort of slink up against the wall and walk out the garage. And, we're going over the radio, whoever's out front. Victim's coming out through the garage. We didn't want her to get lit up. Once we got off the deck, what he did was he ran upstairs, and there was like a mezzanine up there, and he would just poke his head out. He's sitting in the hallway. And we held perimeter for 2 hours until the state police teams unit showed up. And I remember my partner sitting right next to me. There was a split rail fence in the back. Again, not very good cover, but we were in darkness, so he couldn't see us. And I remember talking to him. I'm like, I look at him going, holy shit.
Yeah. The moment of realization that this thing actually happened, right?
I was like, holy shit. So once the state police teams unit comes in, they relieve us. They run us. They brought their vehicle back behind everything and sort of walked us out to the side into safety and stuff. And then I'm ordered to go to the ambulance. I'm like, I'm good. I don't want to go. I want to see this thing through. No, you have to go. And I go to the ambulance. My phone's in my running car, sitting in front in my running car, because you never turn your car off at night. I think I even pissed while I was in the back holding perimeter. Like that's how slow it was. It was just it was like matter of fact. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
You think it's this hypersensitive thing. It really was just no big deal. I get into the ambulance and I'm like, shit, I got to call my wife. Like, I have to call my wife because I was afraid of another wife saying, hey, there was a shooting. Is your husband working? And she can't get in touch with me. So I pick up this unknown, this EMT's phone. I said, I got to call my wife. You mind? No. Call her up. Picks up the phone. I said, Hannah, I was in a shooting. I'm okay. I wasn't shot. Got to go to the hospital. I got to get glass removed from my arm. Click. Done. What a big...
Was there any reaction on the other side of the phone? I don't want you to reveal too much. It's
just like, what are you talking about? Okay. I was like, I'll call you as soon as I can.
Yeah.
But think about what an asshole. I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm still not sure if I was doing the right thing by calling her.
I think it was.
It is, but they don't understand. You call someone like me. All right, but
go to the hospital.
That's one of the things that a lot of people like. When you're married or you have a significant other, that's something difficult. I mean, that's our life. We're used to it. But you tell somebody that, like, whoa.
I know she can't leave. Like, I'm fully aware that she can't go to the hospital to meet me because there's 2 small children at home. I'm fully aware. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, hey, just go back to sleep. We'll be all right.
Well, I'm thinking you didn't want her to think the worst, right? Because if they heard shooting or something, the news media gets on it, and they get a barricaded suspect.
Right. You want somebody special in your life, like, hey.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'm alive.
Yeah.
Right.
And my department didn't do such a good job post-shooting. Like, they did a really shitty job. And the sad part is the last officer involved shooting in Roseland was, I think, 2000 when an officer shot a car thief named Speedy. And it was he tried to run him over on Choctaw Way. And
that's pretty ironic, Speedy.
Yeah, his name is Speedy. He was a great car thief. I'm telling you what, this guy could steal a car. And I saw the case file.
Was he ever in Hoboken?
I'm sure. So he was a blood. He was a blood, and I gotta be honest with you. Speedy would have been successful probably no matter what he did, because he was like an engineer. He had a cordless sawzall with a nail, and he would just go pop, and in the car he would go, and then he'd go pop and turn the car on. It was pretty cool. But his girlfriend also worked security at ADP, so she would
inside track.
She would fill him in.
Yeah,
she would fill him in. But it was a lucky shot. The officer who shot him, as the car's coming at him, I think today it probably would have been a bad shoot. But as the car's coming at him, he shot and it went through the A-pillar, where the door. So people don't know what an A-pillar is. It's where the door meets, like where the windshield frame is, and it went through there and it hit him here. And the bullet, actually, you could see it sticking out of the other side of his head. So that's
road around the front, I guess.
Yeah, that's all they knew about shootings, and the prosecutor's office took care of all that stuff.
Yeah,
because Speedy had died, obviously. So they didn't know what to do. But when one of your guys is in a shooting, you would think they would send one of your own with them.
Yeah,
no, a Fairfield officer accompanying, and I happen to know the Fairfield officer from the gym.
So that was a question I had, because that actually overlaps the time. We didn't work that far from each other. We're in the same county.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty close. Was there any other agencies involved besides the state police in Fairfield, like mutual aid?
I know there was some West Caldwell guys there. I know there was some Essex. It's a shooting on a midnight on a Wednesday.
Yeah,
there ain't a whole lot going on in West Essex
for sure.
So everybody was there. The one person that I did see. After I got off the deck, I saw, do you know who Gerard Veneziano is?
Yes.
So Gerard Veneziano was the Fairfield officer, got shot 9 times, probably 2 or 3 years prior. And he got fucked up real bad.
Yeah, I think I might have.
Yeah, it happened right on
46, wasn't it?
No,
Near 46?
right. It was like right next to their headquarters. The guy had followed him. It was some sort of.
There was a backstory. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
there was
I know who you're talking about.
We had
Okay.
a Bolo. It was a Dodge, maybe Durango or something. I remember the suspect vehicle.
And they caught him in Union, and the way they caught him is they shot his gun into the air, and one of the shot bangs got him. One of the ears. So the shot bangs, some agencies, some towns will have them to identify where guns are going off, and they can tell you the caliber, and they can tell you everything.
Yeah.
And they shot it, and they caught him, and then they did ballistics on the gun, and that was the guy. That was the guy who did it, and he identified him. So as I'm coming off the deck, I see Gerard coming forward. I'm like, oh. Because he had been, as soon as he got back, he was in a car chase, and he got fucked up from the car chase. He got rammed or something. They were stealing vehicles out of Skyline Auto Auction, and he got rammed. But I see him coming around. I go, oh, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, you're the black cloud.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go to the Fairfield officer accompanies me to the hospital, and they take out what glass they can. There was still a lot of glass in my arm. And now I got to go back to the scene. And as I was showing up at the scene, I go back to the scene. He's still barricaded. They can't get him out. They got the negotiator in there. They're trying to get him out, and he won't come out. But he keeps calling 911. But
No lucid communication.
there was nothing. There was really nothing. I get back to the scene, and all I want to do is go home. That's like, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
But I can't get to my keys. My car keys are in my police vehicle. My phone's in my police vehicle. So I go back and I write. They asked me to write reports. So I go back and I write reports.
I was just about to say that.
That's kind of foul right there.
That's
a foul ball, I say.
Yep. And
I was just thinking that before it came out of your mouth.
Yeah, they made me go back and write reports, and I wrote all I can remember. But I also put in that report that they gave me painkillers at the hospital.
Yeah.
So all the reports are moot anyway.
Right.
Just in case. Listen, I had played that game long enough to know where they were going with that. So finally they talk the guy out, they arrest him, and I go back, and the detectives want to talk to me for a couple minutes to find out where I was and stuff. And the news media is everywhere. I don't have my police shirt on anymore. I have but I know the news media's there. I just put like my raincoat on just to
identify
myself. And there's a couple news clips of me at the scene afterwards. That was when I had already gotten back from the hospital. Both my arms are bandaged up. You don't see it because I got the long raincoat on. And then I get my stuff and I go home. And when I get home, I'm driving home just sort of like in silence. Like, I didn't talk. I didn't say nothing. I didn't talk to myself. I just got all these thoughts coming through my head. I'm like, what the fuck? But I was happy. Like, I was really happy about the job that was done. Like, you ever have one of those jobs where you're like, yeah, we did good. We did good.
Yeah, no loss of life, with the exception of the leadership there. I mean, Mike, you were a leader yourself. I have my own opinions being just a police boss, but I bet Mike.
I was on a different level, and honestly, I wanted to get back because I was I'm listening and tracking. I think even in like situations like that, or any, situation with weapons, so forth and so, I think all those SOPs and what we're taught, it's a totally different situation. You can't, you know what I mean? I think a lot of that goes out the door.
So
you're talking about adrenaline. You're talking about what.
So the military, you'll hear a lot of military guys say this. They're great wartime soldiers. They're shitty peacetime soldiers.
Right. So
there's your difference. And administrations, they don't understand the difference. When you're in an active battle, like a shooting, it's an active battle. SOPs and all that stuff. I know you still have to follow AG guidelines. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, am I wearing my hat? Or
right.
Stupid shit like that.
Right. But I'm talking about tactics. You know what I mean? You can be taught so much, but in a situation like that, it's very difficult to concentrate on because you're basically, hey, you're worried about your life, and I'm sure you were worried about your partner's life. Mm-hmm. That, I probably knowing you were probably worried more about him.
I remember,
what I mean?
He was sitting in the desk before I left, and I remember going up to him, and I'm like, hey, Jay, you okay? You all right? Listen. He goes, yeah, they want me to write reports. And I was the department rep for my union, so I said, don't write any reports. Like, I didn't follow my own advice. I said, don't write any reports. You need to go to the hospital. Go to the hospital now. You're not looking good. And he didn't want to, but eventually you really don't look good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want him to write the reports. I said, write the reports after you talk to an attorney, because they could hang you out to dry if they wanted to.
Right.
Likelihood they wouldn't. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry stuff.
You're an informal leader. You're a leader there probably more than any rank or insignia.
No, all the rank really wanted him to write the report. I'm like, what, are you guys out of your fucking mind?
I think the leadership there, I mean to harp on this one point.
I'll tell you for certain. Leadership there was lacking.
I remember something when I first got promoted, and it was advice that came from a boss that I didn't actually have a super high regard for. But he told me two things that resonated me throughout my career. And he goes, to be a boss, you got two main things. One is accomplish the mission, right? And second, right behind that is look out for the betterment of your men.
Mission first, people always.
Don't look over people, look out for them.
Yep.
Right? And that's, unfortunately, too many bosses fail in that.
And you were the de facto boss, because you're where administration should have came from a point of support for you, like sending one of your own just for your comfort.
Yeah.
I don't want to cast stones at an agency I didn't even work for.
No, you can.
They, in my opinion, failed you as much as Vocaturo did at the time.
We're going to get into a little bit of Vocaturo's failure, because I'm not so sure it was a failure.
All right.
I'm not so sure it was a failure.
What was, I got to, before you were talking about how, your wife and your kids went, what else was going through your mind? Was it tactics? Was it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I always think about things like that. Like
During the shooting?
Yeah. Like, even being in a prone position.
It made me such a smaller target. So that stuff, it was autonomous to me.
Okay.
It made me a smaller target, and that's what I thought in my head. I'm like, well, I'm not going to make it easier for you. And my thinking was, okay, you got me dead to rights. Like, if he came out blasting, I'm a sitting duck. In all reality, I was a sitting duck.
Right.
But my thinking was, you may get me, but I'm going to make sure I get you too. So I was ready for him to poke his head out. If he poked his head out just a hair,
I was just going to ask you, were you timing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
figured someone like you, it's exactly what I was going to say. Are you timing his movements, his head?
I knew where he was, and the minute I saw anything, like I never saw, like even when he shot at me, I never saw it. I never saw him because, well, what he did was he just poked his arm around. So I never saw his face. I never once saw his face. He just poked his arm around the side there.
Not only being shot at, I mean, there's a point, at least for police, you're ready to take a life, which is also not insignificant to the incident, right? Like you're worried about your own life, but I am prepared, or you were prepared at that time, to pull the trigger if you had to.
I was, and the funny thing is I was not thinking about any consequences to pulling that trigger. And there's consequences. We've known enough guys in shootings. Yeah. The consequences of taking another life, as far as the investigation goes and things of that nature, is so huge. I mean, obviously, it's so huge.
Yeah, that's just not.
Mike sat 15 weeks with an indictment, murder indictment over his head. So I didn't really care. Like in my mind, it was life or death. When I'm on that deck, it's life or death. Yeah. After the fact, I mean, even if, and I think about this every once in a while. Like we expected him to come out and try to do suicide by cop. But I'm thinking to myself, I probably wouldn't have shot if he came running out the back door, gun in hand. Unless he points that gun, you can't shoot him.
Isn't that? It's so like it's just a bad thing. You know what I mean? You're thinking about losing your job or going through a 15-week indictment. That's just.
It shouldn't be part of the rules of engagement, right?
I mean,
you did this.
It was like just like that. Law enforcement. I've never been shot at as a police officer, but I obviously in the military. I mean, that's something we did on a daily basis. I wasn't thinking about. Listen, hey, am I going to have to do a report? Like I'm thinking about saving my men.
Well, think about how different the rules are from the military to police. So. In that same mode of thinking, and we all know that's the reality of it.
But what you went through, that's combat.
That's combat, right?
Right.
But can you in that same mode of thinking, they would have had to wait for Bin Laden to actually to watch him and get evidence of him planting a bomb before they would be able to kill him.
Right. No,
that's insanity.
Right. It is.
I think that's what separates, and believe me, like I think that's. I'm not trying to say anything about any of the other emergency services, but that's what creates a clear distinction between law enforcement and perhaps the fire service or emergency medical services. Right? The calculus of your mind that's going on at that point is not just life-saving for yourself and life-saving for the other person. There is this calculus of thought that you're taking steps out about the indictment. Do I lose my job? Is this going to be a good shoot? Is it going to be a bad shoot? It's not a straight pathway. That's not insignificant to your incident either, I feel.
It was a lot of, after the chaos happened, then I had some time to think, and I was able to think about it more clearly. So I did start thinking about it then, but while I was on the deck, I didn't care. Like, I would rather go home. It's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6.
Right. Yeah.
So I had that mindset at the time, but the adrenaline afterwards. So the adrenaline was crazy afterwards.
Yeah.
And we, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We all know the backslide that I had afterwards, which was unexpected. I felt like a giant pussy because I wasn't shot. Mike, you've been fucking firefights and mortars thrown at you, and Tom, you've had your hairy calls and stuff like that. But I felt like a giant pussy because I wasn't shot. I got off relatively unscathed, and that was the hardest part for me. That was the hardest part about my mental decline afterwards and subsequent actions and stuff like that. But I want to spend some time on speaking about, I'm 11 years removed. And at about year 7 or 8, I don't know what had me start thinking about Anthony Vocaturo. I started to change. Like, I used to, after the shooting, and after I had to retire, I was so mad at this guy. I was just, if I see him, you motherfucker, you ruined my life. I started to empathize with him. And that's why Dear Chris's question was so important. I started to empathize with him. And I also started to realize that he wasn't shooting at a police officer. At Kevin Donaldson. He was shooting at a police officer. So I started thinking to myself, what do you have to go through in order to shoot at police twice on 2 separate occasions, and want to murder your girlfriend? Like, what pain were you feeling in order to get to that point? I don't know if I could ever get to that point, but he did. So
his path would be an interesting one to find out about.
I know where he lives.
Even his life experience that brought him there. Listen, I can't.
I know exactly where he lives.
You're more forgiving than I think I would be, but.
Because once I did that, once I started empathizing with him and started feeling sorry for him, I took away all his power he had over me. Because when I was angry, he had so much power over me. He ruled my life. Once I flipped that on its ear, it was like
healing.
It was a weight that came off of me.
Mm.
And now, 11 years later, looking at it through different eyes, was it really a tragedy? Look where we are.
Look where it set you.
Look where we are.
Look where the course.
We in the beginning of the show, we went through all the great things that have happened, and none of it would have been possible without Anthony Vocaturo. So once I forgave him internally, and once I started looking at all the strengths that he provided me, I don't hate him at all. At all. As a matter of fact, if he's sitting across from me, I'd like to hear this out of his mouth. That's my joy. Like that if I had to ever end this show, the way I would like to end it was talking to him and finding out what he went through. How did you get there? What is it going on? What was going on in your head? And I would like to hear it from his perspective, because I'm sure this is my perspective. I'm sure I'm missing details or I got details wrong. I don't know. This is the way I remember it.
Do you have in your mind, you mentioned it in general, but do you have in mind maybe 3 specific questions? Like if you were limited to 3 questions, let's say, would you have ones in your head that you think you would lead with? Like what would be like the top 3 things that you would want to know right from Jump Street from him if you were to speak to him?
So I know he got sentenced to 6 years. He did 4. For attempted murder on a cop, but that's not his fault. That's the justice system's fault.
Yeah.
The department never did any type of Vine forms for me. I was never able to give a victim impact statement. So they dropped the ball on that one big time as well. My first question to him would be something, how we end the show. It's like, you had to go through quite a bit. How's life different now?
Yeah.
Like that's the primary question. And you know, there was a couple of them. Like, what was your initial intention on coming up here? I'm sure his initial intention was trying to get back together with his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, sure.
You know, hey, listen, and when she was resistant to it, that's when things got hairy.
Did he have priors at the time?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think so. I don't think he had anything violent anyway. He was in construction.
Do you think he's aware of your complete journey from that time, or maybe just a little bit?
He's aware of me. That I know. And the reason I know that is because my friend John Elite knows him. He knows him, and we've attempted to reach out.
It's a small world.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to paint it.
Yeah,
But-
it's he knows him. So I know he's aware of me, but prior to that connection, I don't think he understood. I don't think he knew the damage that he caused. And you know what? I'm glad I didn't get a chance to meet him while I was going through all the bad stuff and a lot of anger towards him. Because I think if we were ever to come face to face, I think things would have been much different.
For sure, I bet.
Yeah, the mugshot that'll be shown up on screen, that was him. I think he was 51 or 52 years old or 50 years old, something like that. So he's in his 60s now. We all have made bad decisions. His bad decision was a really bad decision, and I don't think he understood the consequences of his bad decision.
Because it had cascading effects on not just you, your family.
Correct. And so part of me sitting down with him would be something to the effect, it would be, I think it would be very hard. My wife would not like me to do it. I think he would be more nervous than I would, though. He doesn't know what my mindset. I might jump across the table and put my arms around him.
Do you believe he would have empathy for it?
To sit down with a soldier on the opposite side of the battlefield after the war's done, you know, I watch guys from Gettysburg do that, and I look at that with envy because I can't imagine how healing that is. I can't imagine how good that must feel, because, you know, if you take Gettysburg, for instance, so the guys from the South were fighting for what they believed in. The guys from the North were fighting what they believed in. None of them are wrong. You know, legally he's wrong, but he was feeling a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something, I guess, to be said. I remember the episode from Band of Brothers at the end when there's the German soldier or general, and he was ready to surrender his sidearm.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
And he, you know, being the bigger man, he said, "No, you can keep your sidearm."
Right, because it's a respect thing.
Absolutely.
Now, Anthony put me on a path. He put me on a path that I was supposed to be on. So you're always, I'm a big believer, you're always right where you're supposed to be. Had he not done that, I probably would have never met you guys.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand that.
So I think the last, and it's not a question, is the last statement I would say to him is I want to thank you. Although it sucked, a lot of it really sucked.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for what you did, because the gifts that were bestowed upon my life because of this awfulness, I would have never been there. I would have never gotten there. You know, if Mike DePalma didn't go through the things that he went through, who knows? We would have never met. All right? If you never went through what you went through and you're still fucking knee pad boss, I'm sorry. I had to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have another.
You know,
The Suffering Podcast.
Who knows?
To have your confidence
You
removed.
could have sucked your way all the way up to DC. But you know, if you didn't go through what you went through, we'd never met.
No.
So you know, karma has a way of fixing things and rearranging things.
It's not only us. I mean, so many people that came in and out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100, and this is 191. All 191 people that I got across and get a lot. And so I will tell you this, over the course of this podcast, hearing all these different stories from both criminals and cops and this side of the law and that side of the law and different walks of life, it's made me really look at his life and really want to dig into him. If that ever happened, but again, I don't think he would ever do it because I think he would be scared of what I was going to do. I really do. I think he would be scared of what I was going to do. And little does he know that I harbor no ill will towards him. I harbor ill will towards the boss that ran away from me and left me for dead.
That is unforgivable for me.
The only solace I have in that is he's got to look himself in the mirror. It's the only solace I have. You know,
Did you say anything to him afterwards or no?
Never.
I would have definitely smacked him.
So there was one time, and I fucking screamed at this guy. They were at an event together. This boss and a guy I know, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here with this guy, and you know, we used to work together." I'm like, "That motherfucker," and I just unleashed on this poor guy who was just saying, "Hey, I met this guy from your department." How many times has somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, so you're on Montclair, and do you know this person?" And this person is not a friend, and you get that look in your face. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
Maybe
know
you should
him.
hang the phone up.
Yeah. It depends.
It's him.
It depends on which Joe.
So it's happened to all of us. It's
Yeah.
happened to all of us. God, I wish I could have the opportunity to talk to the guy because I really, really would want to. I'd love to hear what was going through his head and what his experience was. Hey, who knows? This guy could have went to prison and got Shawshanked right up the rear end. Right? Who knows?
Do you think there's anything that he would say to you that would actually it would just put you right back where you were at that moment?
No.
This whole like even the clock comes right to my, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's a preparation thing. So I know he's never spoken publicly about what he did, but I don't know if he's ever. I've mentioned his name enough. So we talked about that earlier. It's like I mention his name because I want him to hear it.
Yeah.
And I want him. I used to do this when my wife wasn't talking to her father, and he was a cop. And I used to badmouth the shit out of him because all I wanted him to do was to call me up because I wanted to reunite him. That was my main goal, but I did it very backhandedly. I would just badmouth the shit out of him. That motherfucker, yeah, he's a fucking piece of shit. I just want him to call me up and say, "Hey, bro, stop."
Yeah, get a rise. Just get a reaction, a contact.
Something. Right. And that way it would open up the conversation. Well, like, your daughter wants to talk to you. You know, that was my thinking. So if I say his name enough, nobody's ever told me to stop saying his name.
Yeah.
So until I'm told to stop or given that that proverbial cease and desist, I'm not going to. And I don't think I ever will. So, you know, guys, we're kind of coming to the end of this thing. And I purposely stayed away from my mental decline because I wanted to really just get into the shooting and get two other cops' perspective on it. But I know it's taught me a ton. But I want to, so you hear this again, and I know you guys have heard this before. Hearing this portion of it, this suffering, what do you think it's taught you? Mike, I'm going to start this off for you.
What you went through, or
just what is this story taught you?
Things that we do in law enforcement have a major impact, not only in, you know, your life, my life, his life, your family's life. And, you know, it's the support you get when something like a traumatic incident does happen. That's extremely important. I guess it teaches you restraints throughout the years and how to control, you know, certain situations in your life when you go through a traumatic, you know, it might not be as drastic 10 years later. If something like that ever happened again, you'd be mentally prepared. I guess it sets you up for, hey, you know, I know what to do. I know how to do this.
Tom, what do you think?
So I think that the theme that kind of surrounds this whole thing is empathy, right? Sort of at the start where we started, now we're at the end. For myself, my gas tank and my empathy meter is not as full as yours yet.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Only when you forgive can you take away somebody else's power over you. Listen, I'm not telling anybody to forgive these awful things. I'm just telling you my personal experience.
But what I can say is it's encouraging. The three people in this room right now, how we were kind of connected, is almost an unbelievable story in itself. But seeing how you and your story is deep, it gives me hope for myself. I'm there and I'm working towards it. And you guys, having this platform and just us sitting here looking in each other's eyes, not too long. I'm up here.
Guys,
Keep them up north.
Guys, just don't make eye contact.
Stay here. I'm just trying to figure.
No, but seeing that wound, the wounds are in the eyes, and the journey that you've come along, it gives me hope, and I'm gonna get there, hopefully, to where you are.
You could see
someday.
you telling the story and knowing you all these, the time I have. You could see how it affects you now.
It's different.
I could see it.
It's different. First time I ever told it, yeah, it was tough. This is at the 7,000th time. So
walking amongst the dented,
yeah,
has value, and it's encouraging.
So Anthony Vocaturo has taught me a lot. Okay, but he, just to encapsulate everything, just to piggyback on what I said to you, without forgiveness. There's still a lot of people I have to forgive, and I know I have to forgive them. I'll get there. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else. But until I forgive these people, they always will have some sort of power over me, and I don't want them to have any more power over me. The time has passed. So I know once that forgiveness happens, and it's not as easy as to say I forgive you. You have to really, honestly, in your heart, forgive them.
Yeah.
But Anthony Vocaturo has put me on a path. And in my mind, it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. Maybe being a cop was just a conduit in order to get here. Because this is something that I really love. It's something that I enjoy. It's something that I take very seriously, doing this show and going out and talking to people and helping them through their journeys. That's what gives my life purpose. It gives me more purpose than being a police officer. And I know that sounds very odd to sitting here in front of two other cops. I know it sounds very odd, but that's the truth. Sitting here on the Suffering Podcast, talking to people, letting them unleash their pain and their trauma gives my life purpose and gives me a reason to get out of bed. And it still gives me that same drive. And without Anthony Vocaturo, none of this would have been possible. So I'm grateful to him. I know that sounds weird. Guy tries to kill you, but you're grateful for him. It's truth.
He's earned your empathy.
Yes, he has. Thank you guys very much for sitting in here on this one.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, the suffering of my shooting. And unfortunately, because I talked most of the time, I didn't learn very much. But let's talk about the stuff that we learned. Focus often comes with trauma. Lack of leadership is more detrimental oftentimes than a bullet. Perspective dictates your history, but most importantly, I'm right where I'm supposed to be with my best friends. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, Clapper, now on Rumble, OnlyFans. And follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course follow the Suffering Podcast, and we're going to see you on the next episode.